April 22nd, 2019 meeting of the Rutherford County Regional Planning Commission. If you would stand with us, please. Commissioner Chip Pinion will lead us in our prayer and our pledge. Chip.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this day and for your love for us. We thank you for allowing us to come together and to do the work of the county today. And we just ask you to give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding we need to make the best decisions. And Father, as we're in here today working, Father, we thank you for those that are help protecting us today, all law enforcement, our military. Father, we just thank you for our fire departments and so many others that are sheriffs that are just taking care of us and watching over us as we're able to work in here today. Father, we just thank you for all that you do for us. And we coming off yesterday, and we're very much mindful of what you've done for us, and we give you thanks for that. Again, we just ask you to guide us and direct us during this time today. We love you and we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Call the roll, please, Gail.
Charlotte P.
Here.
Chip Pinion.
Here.
Craig Lynch.
Here.
David Jones.
Here.
Jim Averwater.
Here.
Lee Bogle.
Here.
Mike Cush.
Here.
Mike Watt.
Here.
Hettis Reed.
Here.
Rhonda Allen.
Here.
Jeff Phillips.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gail. We have no minutes to approve this morning, and no items have been withdrawn or deferred, so we're ready to go. Under 6, new business. 6A, items that are submitted for a preliminary plan approval. 6A1, item 19-1004, 12 Corners, Section 2, Phase 2, 28 lots on 16.7 acres, zoned RL, located off Pegasus Road Run. RHB is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good morning, Planning Commission members. Hope everybody's doing well this morning. The first of 3 preliminary plans we have for you this morning. The first is, as you stated, 12 Corners, Section 2, Phase 2. This plan does represent a continuation of the 12 Corners development. This was one of the developments that was affected by the RLRM regulation that we just changed at the Board of Commissioners earlier this month with the minimum lot width. You recall that discussion we had about a month or two ago. Since that amendment has passed, this plan is in conformance with the zoning regulations at this time. When these comments were written, we did have a number of things for them to take a look at. Those comments have all been addressed. This plan is in good order. They are proposing to put the mail kiosk. You can kind of see it on lots. It looks like, well, I can't see the number. It's right there. Yeah, we'll zoom into it here so you have an idea what we're looking at. Yeah, lot 160. That's where they're proposing to put the kiosk. It's on a common area lot already where the stormwater detention area is. So, of course, they know they have to do a separate site plan submittal for that, but that fact that it's planned for at this point is good. So, with that, again, this plan appears to be in good order.
Thank you.
Doug, I have a question. We had to do a traffic study on Walnut Grove and 231, and you got a number of houses in the subdivision off Hoover Road there, and this one's getting larger all the time. At what point do we need to do a traffic study at 266 and Las Casas Highway? Because there have been several accidents there, and it's a mean intersection.
We would probably look at that when we start seeing other new development in this area. This is a subdivision. Of course, this has been approved, the subdivision in and of itself, so they're just continuing on with what was really already on the books, in a sense. But I mean, that's something I think that engineering and myself would take a look at as we see new sections come in if we think that one's warranted to look at that point.
Yeah, there was a guy killed there last year, so
Oh, is that right?
that's one reason I was asking. Several have asked me about it.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 19-1004, 12 Corners, Section 2, Phase 2. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 682-19-1005, Kimball Fields, 81 lots on 68.39 acres, zoned RL, located off Cairo Road. Cairo Land Holdings LLC is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The applicant's proposing to construct 81 lots on the subject property. I guess, again, this was another development that was affected by the minimum lot width in the RL zone. Again, now that that regulation has been amended, this development meets those standards as far as lot width is concerned. Staff did have a number of comments on this particular plan. Most of those pretty much all those comments have been addressed. As you can see, that most of this is kind of contained in the center of the property there. They do have some open space, which they're not required to have. It's just going to be some kind of passive open space. You can see the step area toward the south end of the property and some stormwater detention toward the northern end right there on Cairo Road. Beyond that, again, our comments have been addressed, and this plan appears to be in good order, so we'd be happy to answer any questions at this point.
Which way is it drain, Mike?
It's got two ponds. I think the middle is more of a high ground. They've got a pond to the north here and a pond kind of in this bend of the road. The step field will be back in this area here. So I guess there is a little bit of a ridge separating the step field with most of the development. One pond will be in this area, another pond will be in this area up front to handle the drainage.
The drainage is to the northeast then?
Yes, sir. I'll turn on the quad maps. Sometimes that helps. Yes, it kind of flows to the northeast.
Greg, is this on storage tractors?
Yeah, it's Stories, James Stories. Yeah. Thank you. I have good perspective.
Drains to Dry Fork Creek eventually.
I'll make a motion to approve, so the
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 19-1005 for Kimball Fields. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
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 Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6A3, 19-1006, Estates of Burleson, 13 lots on 13.45 acres, zoned RM, located along Burleson Lane. Gilbert McCarter is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The applicant's proposing to create 13 lots on the subject property. You see that stormwater detention is shown on lot 13 on the plan on your iPads. We'll get to that here in just a minute. We do require that our stormwater detention ponds and everything be on a lot of its own, but as you can see here, they're proposing to put it with the, well, I guess they've renumbered the lots, but there is a stormwater detention. Mike's kind of got it highlighted there on lot 8, so I apologize for that. I think the lot numbering was a little different originally. But with that, the comments that we had on this particular plan have been addressed as far as the administrative comments that we had. Now, the big discussion is whether or not they're asking for a waiver to keep that lot on the building lot as opposed to having it a lot on its own. Jamie Reed is here representing the applicant. This was a plan he had worked on. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. That's really the only outstanding item on this plan at this point. Again, with only 13 lots, there wasn't a whole lot as far as any traffic concerns or anything like that. These are going to be conventional septic tanks, so there's no step system to be concerned with or anything. So the big issue right now is whether or not that stormwater pond is allowed to stay on lot 8 or if it needs to be on its own lot. So with that, again, I'll be happy to answer any questions if Mike has anything he wants to say.
Doug, didn't we on the estates of Lewis Downs, and there was one on the back?
There was one on that. We did. Yes, sir.
One lot.
That's the only, as far as I can recall, that's the only other one we've done that on.
I think we
did another one before that.
There was,
off,
Burnt Knob.
Yeah.
Burnt Knob Road. Is that the
Off
one you're
the
thinking
Stewart's
of?
Creek Road.
Yes.
But that was a little before my time. Right.
Pretty logical.
Jeremy, you have a comment?
Yes, sir. I was just going to, the main reason I was trying to do this, not that we can't make this a separate lot, if it's y'all's druthers that we do that. The only thing that I was concerned about, like everybody said, it's a septic system lot. I can break that out where it's a lot that ties back there to it. But the lot, if you look how, it's just a little arm that kind of sticks out from the back of that subdivision. So if somebody's coming behind somebody's house in their yard, just to mow that small area, and this is not a huge detention pond, it's a little bitty small pond, about the size of this room, you know, in theory, I would like to just keep it as part of that lot where they could actually mow it and maintain it. It doesn't have an outlet structure in it. It's an overflow type thing, so there's not an outlet structure for them to clean out. So it's really minor maintenance. It's mainly just to keep it mowed. If it isn't in my backyard, I would take care of it better than, you know, HOA. Typically, people like to keep the yards mowed and nice all together as one, instead of waiting for somebody to mow that back. But
They're gonna be an HOA with this?
yes, there will be an HOA because there, like I said, there is a pond up front that I made a lot because it's separate from everything. This is just kind of an odd situation. It's back there, kind of like the estates of Lewis Downs that you brought up. It was kind of on the back of those lots, and this one's just going to be in such a weird position. But if y'all come back and you say no, we want to see that, I can still do it. It's just be an odd deal for somebody to come behind somebody's house and mow.
Will there be some language included that they can't eliminate that or grade that out
Yeah,
to a
yeah,
flat?
yes,
Okay.
we'll have, that'll be on the plat and take care of that. It'll be in a drainage easement slash detention pond, so.
Maintenance agreement.
With a Mike, you good point, long-term maintenance agreement stuff. But that's our druthers, and that's why we kind of set that up that way.
Jamie, can you put up a sign that, in case the property transfers 10 years down the road, that says this is a detention area, you know, and does not, you know, where the
I mean, we could put it back there on the back of that fence, as it's, you know, where it discharges out, back there on the back of the fence, this is the, yeah, I mean, if that's what,
yeah,
yes,
you
sir.
don't want the a homeowner 10 years from now coming in, filling it, and
Yes.
saying, I'm gonna build a shop back here. It's a great spot for a shop.
Okay, I'll sure do. I'll get with Mike on the verbiage, how he wants to.
Are you comfortable with the drainage? I know the track to the east or
Yeah,
northeast.
we're actually working on that right now also. That's another.
You know, I know you get on Old Nashville Highway over there, there can be some standing
Oh, it's,
water over there.
yeah, there's definitely, it's all one big up and down, sinkhole to sinkhole to sinkhole, and it finally ends up draining out through some city properties and eventually gets to the river. But it's that up and down, sinkhole to sinkhole to
Yeah.
area.
We're working on a volume evaluation of this property, so we can retain the volume on site. Jamie's done a pretty good job so far, not even submitting the construction plans. I feel pretty comfortable about this, the volume that they've allowed.
So Doug, on this detention pond on someone's lot, is there any kind of easement that shows up on a deed? I understand that's not really our department, but my concern is when they do title searches on it, you know, they find all kinds of easements like that. I'm not sure that anybody ever looks at the plat though when a property changes hands.
Well,
I just
yeah,
wanna make
unfortunately-
sure the next owner knows.
Yeah, this would be put in a detention easement, which would be shown on the final plat. Now, chances are the deed would just reference that lot on the final plat. It may not specifically, yes, it's, you know, obviously we don't have anything, we don't write the deeds, but, you know, unfortunately, I don't know if, you know, other than just the fact that it's there on the plat.
Yeah, and the long-term maintenance
We'll
agreement.
reference the plat.
And the
which
long-term maintenance agreement's recorded
long-term
too,
maintenance
so
agreement.
it'll specify lot 8 and the one up front that's gotta be maintained, so it'd be deeded
Right,
too.
I mean, but I think what he's saying is if somebody were just transferring the land, lot 8, from one person to another, it's probably just gonna reference the plat. Someone would actually have to look at the plat to be
Yeah,
able to say,
correct.
oh, there's
Yeah.
all this on there.
Correct.
And what I talked with Jamie about as well, in the future, we've got to make sure that we have access available to get back here and work on it. And he said he could define an access easement
Yep.
through here that will allow equipment to get back through here to work on the pond.
Mike, does that common area up front hold water?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's got that designed to store some extra volume. Let me get back to that page. I don't think we have the construction plans in here, but he's over excavated in this area, and I'll show you. This is part of the low area here, but lot 13 will be in this area here. So we'll retain additional volume on lot 13 to
So one
prevent.
would be homeowners association and one would be owners.
Yes, but it would be under the review of the homeowners association as well for that pond in the back.
That's up front, David. That's what
Okay.
kind of what it was going to look like. And that drains into a huge bowl next to us that I'm working on the next development. Over.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 19-1006, Estates of Burleson. Any other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Item 6B, these are items submitted for final plat approval. 6B1, 19-2013, Johnson Road. One lot on 2 acres zoned RM located along Johnson Road. Jeremy and Brady Johnson are the applicants. This is a right-of-way dedication?
Yes, sir. Actually, I can use that one. Sorry. No, it's fine. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, this is being brought before you for right-of-way dedication. They're proposing to divide 2 acres from an existing 15-acre tract. Since we can't approve right-of-way dedication administratively, that's why it's coming before you today. The plat did have several comments that need to be addressed. Just for the sake of kind of getting it all out there, if you will. The comments on this were actually prepared and finalized, but for some reason they were never sent to the surveyor. So that's on us. So I apologize for that. So what you're looking at is still the original submittal of what they submitted. The comments that are on there are nothing that would rise to the level of any kind of a deferment. Staff is comfortable looking at this, making sure those comments are addressed before signing off on the final plat. But I just wanted to make you all aware of that the reason you're not seeing a more updated one on this particular plan was, again, the comments were finished. It just in the flurry of getting everything out, we just missed one. So, but with that, again, we're perfectly happy just making sure everything's addressed on this. I don't see any particular reason to hold this up. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to those staff comments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve 19-2013 for Johnson Road. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B2, 19-2015, Anglers Retreat, Section 2, 40 lots on 18.99 acres. That's pretty close to 19 acres. Zone RM located along Powell's Chapel Road. Jonathan W. Trout is the applicant, Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the Planning Commission back in July of 2015. This final plat is consistent with the preliminary plan. The biggest issue on this particular plat was the provision of the mail kiosk. Mr. Trout and I have had conversations about this, as I know he's had conversations with the USPS, as I've had conversations with them as well. Ultimately, what they have decided to do, you can see they've identified lot 78 right there along Anglers Retreat Drive. A small little cutout area there for the mail kiosk area. Of course, he knows that the site plan submittal is required. Actually, they have submitted it. It'll be on our next review cycle. So with that, the comments beyond that have been addressed. This plat is in good order. So we'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is present.
So we will see a site plan on the mail kiosk?
That is correct.
Okay.
Make a motion to approve with staff comments.
I have a motion and a second to approve 19-2015 Anglers Retreat, Section 2. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B3, Item number is 19-2018, second re-subdivision of Lot 3, Pleasant View, Section 2, Track 11, Vault Properties, 2 lots on 18.17 acres, Zone RL, located along Pleasant View Drive. Simmons Builders Incorporated is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This final plat was the lots were created by final plat that was recorded back in July of last year. Since that time, the applicant has looked at the plats. He owns both of these and would like to re-subdivide the property, adding some land from Lot 11 to Lot 3. Now, this type of re-subdivision would typically be handled administratively because he's not creating a new lot. He's just shifting some lot lines around. However, this transfer would create the need for an off-site soil easement for Lot 11. And when you pull up the plat, we can see that. You can see right in that area that that soil site, they still need access to the soil site, but they would have to have an access, or rather an off-site easement to do that. So that's the reason it's coming before you today, is because we can't approve a plat that requires a waiver from our subdivision regulations. Beyond that issue, this plat's in good order. There really weren't any comments left to address. All the other staff comments were taken care of. So the applicant is present and can explain the need for the off-site waiver and why they're doing it the way they're doing it. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Staff recommendation?
I mean, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. I mean, it's something that they're going to have to deal with moving forward.
Thank you.
The lots in and of themselves are still pretty much, I mean, they're acreage tracts. So
I think the owner of Lot 3 wanted the additional creek frontage along Bradley Creek, but he understood that Lot 11 still needed the septic area, if I understand correctly.
So lot 3 still maintains the land, but with the easement.
correct.
Oh, I got them. Wrong ones. It's these two. Yeah. So, yeah, this lot line would go back to this area, and Lot 3 would grow to include this whole area.
Are there still 5 acres with?
Yes, the
Southernmost lot
even
there.
by reducing the size of Lot 11, it's still going to be 5.01 acres, and the Lot 3 will just grow by that little bit.
Yeah, there was language to keep subdividing those lots years ago. It may have expired by now. I'm not
Well,
sure.
if you remember, this came to the commission even before that, when it was recorded. It came before the commission to create lots, and then they actually came back with a revision to it because of some of those covenants. From our standpoint, it didn't matter to us, but there were some covenants on there that they couldn't create another lot, which they're not doing here. They're just changing some of the dimensions of the
Looks like
lots.
to me it goes back to the way it was. Is that right?
Well, pretty close, actually, yeah. I was thinking the same thing when I first saw it.
So that's offsite for primary and secondary?
Yes.
Motion to approve. Subject to staff comment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 19-2018, second re-subdivision, Lot 3, Pleasant View, Section 2, Track 11. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B4, 19-2019, Madison Cove, Section 2, and re-subdivision of Lot 59, 47 lots on 21.25 acres, zoned RM, located along Shellman's Drive. Liana Investment LLC is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved by the Planning Commission back in October of 2017. Again, this final plat does appear consistent with that preliminary plan approval. Most of our comments have been addressed. One of the primary issues that they had on this was the location of the mail kiosk, which I believe they're putting down. Mike, if you could zoom in down in that area. Okay. Bottom of the cul-de-sac there. I believe it's where they're putting it.
This first goes.
Yes. I believe what they're going to do, it's not shown here, and Mr. Steele is here, so he might be able to speak a little bit more on this. We've been talking with the developer about where they need to put the mail kiosk on this development. And again, this has been a frustrating issue to have to deal with the location of these kiosks, especially in developments that have already been approved. The post office, quite frankly, they're not giving any leeway for any of these new developments coming in, so it's been frustrating for everybody to have to deal with. But I'll let Steve talk a little bit more about the kiosk as far as the location. They have submitted a site plan for that. I just don't think it's made it on the location of the plat yet. Beyond that, they just need to show the fire hydrant locations before the plat's recorded, which is typical. Sometimes they're not on the final plat, but before it's recorded, they'll make sure that gets on there. And then they need to show some conservation easements around the sinkholes on lot 91 and 92, which are over, and Mike's zooming into that area. But beyond those issues, I mean, those are things that can be handled fairly easily, I think, administratively. But as far as the plat in and of itself is concerned, beyond those comments, it's in good order. So.
We do have a geotechnical report for the closure of the sinkhole on lot 92, so it can be not have a conservation easement around it. It's been closed properly.
Steve, you have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Steve Steele with Huddleston Steel. Actually, we met with the developers late last week, and on your plat, what you may see on the screen, there's a lot number 68 at the end of Santos Drive. They're actually going to shrink that lot down and put the kiosk on that lot. So in effect, they're going to lose a lot, one of their buildable lots. That's what they chose to do in this particular situation. And actually, one of the developers picked up the drawings, I think Friday, Doug, and may not have gotten to you. I brought a copy with me. That shows right there.
Right. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
So it shows on the plat that we have, and we've also shown where the two sinkholes were, Mike. But we're just stating that there was a geotechnical report, and we're not showing it as a conservation easement.
Yes.
Does that play into the drainage?
No, they do not. So the one on 92 was closed under the direct supervision of a geotechnical engineer. So they've closed this one properly, and it's not going to be an issue anymore. The other one, I don't know. Are they planning on closing this one? It's so far back behind.
You know, Mike, you might be right. I didn't see where that one was closed. We may have inadvertently shown that. We can take that off, because it was up front closer to the road where they were doing repairs when I was out there.
I believe that was the one on 92 back in here. So.
Mike, when you close those things properly, you know, with an engineer study and all there, then can you build over them?
Sure. Yes, sir. Yeah. Very expensive to do, but if you do it correctly, you can build on top of them.
That's what I thought.
Give us a little cliff note on how we do this. A lot of riprap or what?
Well, you excavate out everything until you get to the open throat of the sinkhole, or best you can determine is the open throat. You put down a geotextile fabric. You put down large boulders essentially to choke off the throat, and then as you come up, you reduce the size to gravel, flap the erosion fabric over the top of it, soil on top of that, and direct the water away from that sinkhole, and it doesn't become an issue anymore.
That stops that potential, that boiling water that might come out?
Yes, sir.
Is there a limit as to how large a sinkhole you can close?
It just depends on how deep your pocket is.
How much money you have?
Yeah.
How do you,
sinkhole you got in your pocketbook.
Right.
I don't have one.
Good point.
Mike, how do you predict how you've impacted drainage since we don't ever really quite know how those sinkholes are utilized?
You talking about the
The
karst
impact.
drainage network
Yeah,
underneath
yeah.
it?
Plug
Well,
it, yeah, if you plug one, what happens?
well, it's kind of like Swiss cheese. It's going to come out somewhere. We'll probably have to work with Tanya on this one. They might need a sump pump in the crawl space. I don't know if it's a slab. It won't matter if they build on top of that. But yeah, it's a difficult situation. It's an unknown system essentially. But typically we don't want to do this wholesale because you do need a big part of Rutherford County does rely on sinkhole drainage. I mean, it's you'd be surprised how many. And I think I brought it up at the last planning commission meeting. The map for the sinkhole drainage reliant areas in Rutherford County. So
once it's covered, is there any? Does it have to be known to the buyer that they've covered a sinkhole?
The flag lot, isn't it?
no, sir.
not
No,
after it's
it's
We're big on putting signs up and marking stuff like Mike wanted to do. She said it's just,
I'm just saying,
It'll never
once it's
sell.
covered,
Yeah.
there's no.
There was no sinkhole.
Buyer beware.
Horse thing.
Yeah, you're thinking buyer notification.
Steve?
Mr. Chairman, in this particular case, we propose to show an outline of the area and leave a note on the plat so that the buyer will beware. The other thing about this particular lot, there's an adequate envelope behind it to build the house.
Right.
So somebody's got to choose to put the house over the hole. They don't have to.
For putting it on the plat, but generally, there's
Is that
no
common practice?
requirement to do that in general?
I'm not aware of any. I mean, once it's closed properly, and David, you're
Yeah, once it's closed properly by standards, it's like it was never there.
right. And I've got in my neighborhood in the city, there's I think 2 houses in my subdivision that were sitting on top of old sinkholes that were developed. And I keep watching them. I'm looking and talking to the neighbors. You got any cracks or got any settling? Nothing. So I mean, it's been
And it may be more stable than the rest of the lot sometimes.
right.
Yeah, they can pop in a real wet year or a real dry year, you'll find a new one, a new sinkhole.
Yeah.
They'll have the known rather than the unknown.
Yes.
Steve, do y'all oversee that, or do you have a specialist that oversees that, or?
We did not. Normally, it's a geotechnical engineer, a civil engineer that deals and specializes in what's under the ground. We're pretty much on top of the ground as far as civil. That's more geotechnical.
So there is a specialist
Oh, yes, sir.
that oversees it.
And there are guys that really look at karst, what's called karst condition, sinkholes, and every sinkhole's not the same. I mean, when I think sinkhole, I think of something as big as this room. We find holes as small as this desk.
Or
So it-
smaller.
or
Yeah, you
smaller.
can
It just-
see, yeah, a little.
So it's not, and all of them don't receive a lot of water. In this particular case, there was very little, if any, water going to this, and the road that we're building would have cut off the water anyway, the drainage system for the road, as far as water on top of the ground.
So I think it was most likely in this circle area here that was. Yes.
We did show that one back here, and that may be
Right.
wrong. I'll check that.
Right. So if the one in the back's going to stay, like I said, I've received a report on the sinkhole up front, but if the ones in the back is going to stay, we just need to put a conservation area around it.
I
and
think
just
that's what we
build
need
up
to do.
front.
I'm sure they haven't even looked at that. That's probably still in the woods.
So is that anything that's within our authority as this body to require that note be on the plat? Because they're doing it voluntarily, but is there anything that we can do to say, and to Steve's point though, they're not all created equal, so I don't necessarily want to scare off everybody when you've got the little ones. So I'm just kind of thinking through this out loud in terms of the buyer beware. What's the prudent thing to do to let somebody know you're building your house in a sinkhole. Like you said, Mike, you're watching the one in your neighborhood. Those buyers, they don't know to watch it. You know, so if you do see a minor something, you might just think, oh, well, that's minor, that's settling. It never occurs to you, oh, gee, there might be a problem that I should be in front of. So that, I'm just trying to think through what's the prudent thing to do. And I don't know the answer. So
Don't know if we have any rules on that, but I can go back and look. But I mean, if Steve doesn't have an issue with making that note on the plat, just letting the buyer or the builder and the buyer know that the sinkhole was closed, and we can, you know, make a copy of the report available.
Are sinkholes graded? Like, could you say this is a grade 1, you know, which is nothing, or this is I mean, I don't know. Again, I'm just trying to, I don't want to just throw out there this really scary language.
I don't think they are, and
Okay.
you know, our sinkholes here are founded on limestone, very solid rock, very solid conditions. The holes may have been formed tens of thousands
Right.
of years ago, but it's not like where if we had sand and sinkholes will open up out
Yeah.
of nowhere.
We won't be.
We don't have that kind of condition. I think there might, my recollection is there is some rule about sinkholes in the zoning ordinance. Because
Might
we've
be-
done this for
yeah,
years.
it
We
might be
put
in
notes
the-
on the plat.
Yeah, it might be more in the subdivision regulations, but I mean, we can.
But we've been
we can at
doing
least
this
look
for
at that,
years,
you
putting
know.
a note showing where we found them.
Okay.
But we just can't guarantee that's not all, because
While we rely on the, you know, a licensed geotechnical engineer in good standing with the state.
Right, which is something that buyer's not going to have access to. They're not going to have access to that geotech report or even know who to go back to say, hey, gee, what happened here? You know. So,
we can put together a note between Mike and I to
I'm just
make sure
curious.
that
Like
at
I said,
least
I'm
it's
just
on the
thinking out loud.
plat.
And we'll look, Mike and I will check out the regulations, because I mean, I'm kind of with Steve. There's probably, I know
think
there's
there's
a
something.
whole section in the subregs that deal with sinkholes.
Right.
I just don't remember if there's a specific
Requirement.
regulation that says even if you close it, there should still be a note on the plat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Dave, how do y'all find them? I mean, do you really walk looking for them, or after it's grid staked, or what do you do?
I hate to say it, but being the day after Easter, it's like looking for Easter eggs. You just, what you see is what you show. Now, the county's GIS map can sometimes help. It may give an indication there might be one back there, but generally it's a surveyor who's checking the topography. He's trained to know if he sees a spot that's a closed contour, a closed depression, he spots that. It may or may not be what I would call a sinkhole. It may just be a low spot, but he's trained to shoot the bottom and the perimeter of it so we can take a look at it. But, you know, if the lot is heavily wooded and grown up, we may not find them all. But if they're that small too, they're probably not that big a problem.
It's much like on the farm. I know we always found ours in the spring when we was cutting hay.
Mhm.
When you lose a front wheel on the tractor.
I've done that.
They would show up a lot of times right after that. And this time, the rain we've had the past winter and the spring, that's when you'll see a lot that'll be returning, showing. But this is Rutherford County.
Mhm.
It's just a fact of life of this county.
Yes.
We look at it as well on, you know, the construction plan review. We'll look at the soil type. You know, not every piece of Gladeville rock has sinkholes, but it's a pretty common occurrence in, you know, Gladeville, Talbot, some of our rockier grounds. So we do a number of things. We rely on their survey information, but we also look at our GIS information, which has a lot of you know, information that could help us. You know, the soil type. We do have 1 foot contours now. I didn't have them loaded for this area, but we do have 1 foot contours, which is really helpful. It's a little more detail than the typical 2 foot contours that we have here. So we do our best in short and sweet.
We got into a lengthy discussion on sinkholes. Let's get back to this piece of property and make a decision on this, and maybe move forward with our next training session. I know we've talked about sinkholes before, but let's look at a training session on our next sinkholes, and that way we can evaluate where we stand on identifying sinkholes and even maybe doing something there. But could we do that, Doug?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I do have one more question on this property.
Sure.
And this is not related to sinkholes. On where you chose to put the mail kiosk, typically in other plats that we've seen, y'all have decided, not just you, but most of the firms have decided to put them in a more visible area, or a more prominent area of the neighborhood. You've chosen the back of a cul-de-sac on this one. What was your reason for choosing that location? And I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just curious why a different.
And I wish I could tell you, but actually it was the developer's choice.
Okay.
Part of the reasoning for it is this requirement has come after it was approved, after it was built, and it wasn't like we could bake it into the design. So it was an after-the-fact kiosk, and they chose just to eliminate a lot that they thought might have a narrow, not too deep building envelope. Might be kind of tough to build on anyway, so they decided to squeeze that in, make the two adjoining lots bigger, and use that small envelope for the kiosk area.
I just know lots of times cul-de-sacs are a big selling feature because people like to live on cul-de-sacs. I was just
Right.
curious why you'd encourage traffic on one. So.
Well, there's going to be a lot of traffic at kiosk. It's
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Why would you encourage that? So, yeah. But it's what you got.
It does provide a place to turn around without pulling in somebody's driveway if there's not another turnaround.
I got you. Okay.
And I want to thank the developer. I mean, this has been a stressful situation on them, I know, and Steve and I working through this it's frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. And of course, I was talking to another developer just this morning, and because he was asking, he goes, well, why am I even required to put this in? I said, well, quite frankly, you don't have to. I said, if you decided just to have everybody do P.O. boxes in your development, you can just not even worry about it. I said, that's really up to you. I said, only thing we're doing is saying if you're going to put one in, it has to follow these requirements. So I think there's been a little back and forth between the Postal Service and us. They're saying we're the ones requiring everything, so you should be mad at the county. We're like, well, we're just responding to what's been handed down to us, kind of thrown in our laps. But ultimately, if the developer just said, you know what, I don't even want to fool with it, they could just require everybody that lives in that development to get a P.O. box, and they wouldn't have mail service. So, I mean, that's really up to them if they want to do that.
We'll see it eventually. Don't you know?
Yes, sir.
I move for the approval with staff comment.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 19-2019 Madison Cove Section 2 and re-subdivision of Lot 59. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. And thank you for your help with that, Steve. Appreciate it. 6B5 19-2020 Griffith Park, Section 3, 42 lots on 12.05 acres on PUD located along Cutoff Road. D.R. Horton Incorporated is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. This plan was originally approved by the Planning Commission back in February of 2016. Again, this final plat does appear to be consistent with that plan and the construction drawings that came after that. The kiosk for this development will actually be in the common area, which is located in Section 1. That was something that was already that they had already submitted something for us to look at, so that's not going to be an issue in this particular development. The pattern book does identify traffic improvements to Lebanon Pike with the development of this section. From what Mike, you told me, you said that those are in the construction drawings and everything's fine with that, so that's good. Beyond that, our comments on this plat have been addressed. This plat is in very good order. There's really nothing else outstanding on this at this point, unless, Mike, you had anything further? Okay.
Michael, can you summarize the traffic improvements on Lebanon Park?
Well, apart from the turn lane improvements on Cutoff, they're planning a left turn lane into, let's see, this is Malcolm Way, and then also there will be a left turn on Cutoff down on this side going in to Cutoff. And Jamie, I can't remember, is there a right turn lane coming from the north going south? I don't remember. Okay. Well, there are two left turn lanes, I believe, in there. And then this will be pretty much a continuous turn lane in between the two new roads, the new Malcolm Way and the existing cutoff road.
Did the state require the turn off, the left turn lane at Malcolm Way, or did the developer volunteer?
That's was from the traffic study. The traffic study said to allow 231 to continue and not stop it and back it up into cutoff. We need a left turn lane with a lot of storage in there to allow that turning movement. We did add a note, this plat and another plat, that we would like a licensed surveyor to stake out the houses around this TVA easement, and that's kind of a new note we're putting on plats, just to make sure that they're not, even though this is not an active line right now, they could put power lines in there. So just to be safe, we want them to make sure it's staked out by a registered land surveyor. Some of these are pretty tight, like 63, and they said they do, and 689, yeah. They said they do have building plans to fit these lots.
Wouldn't that be done anyway?
Sir?
Wouldn't the surveyor be staking all the corners anyway?
You would hope.
You would hope.
You would hope. We've had to move a building or two.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Say no more.
Make a motion to approve with staff comments.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 19-2020, Griffith Park, Section 3. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you.
May I ask a question? Speaking of locating the building corners, does the surveyor hired by you guys do that, or does the builder responsible for staking those corners?
The builder would be responsible.
And is he,
The surveyor has to stake the property corners. They'll set the pins for the yard.
For the yard.
But the builder typically hires. They don't have to hire the design engineer firm.
You know, but on that plat also with CUD over there, all those lots you see there, we have to have a critical plot plan with each of those. So there'll be a house layout showing where the tank and the water service and everything on each of those
Driveway,
lots, and
everything,
driveway and
yeah.
everything. So
So to Mike's question, there was a house that was built, and it was not in the right position on north side of States.
Yes, sir. You know the one.
And they moved it. But who enforced that? I mean,
Well, the building codes inspector made a point. Said,
so our
hey,
codes people can enforce,
This doesn't
if
appear
it's
to be
outside
right.
that building envelope, then. Okay.
Is that it, Mike?
thank you, I'm sorry.
Okay. Item 6B6, 19-2021, Thornhill Acres subdivision, one lot on 1.14 acres on RM located along Rocky Fork Road. Michael E. Thornhill is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. This property is proposed to be subdivided for a future CUD pump station. We have met with CUD regarding their plans. We anticipate them moving forward in the very near future. Right-of-way dedication is required for this, which is why it's coming before you. Besides that, this plat appears to be in good order, and we'd recommend approval.
Motion to approve, subject to staff comments.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve 19-2021. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6B7, 19-2022. Preserve Section 1, 40 lots on 20.77 acres on RM located along Ocala Road. Regent Homes is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The preliminary plan for this development was approved back in March of 2017. Again, this final plat does appear to be consistent with the plan and those construction drawings. The mail kiosk was identified. It's actually on the second page. It'll be in an existing common area. that you'll see kind of in the cul-de-sac there. They've kind of identified the location of where that is. Again, that is common area. They do know, again, a site plan will be required for that. Beyond that issue, all the other comments we had on this particular final plat have been addressed. Plat appears to be in good order, so we'd recommend approval.
I make that a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve 19-2022, Preserve Section 1. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question, Mike.
Yes, sir.
I mean, every time it floods some portion of this area, and I don't know whether this is part of it or not, but is your drainage good here?
Yes, sir. This is.
Does it get to a blue line stream anywhere?
Yes.
Okay.
And in between South Haven, just next door, there is a stream. I think it's an unnamed tributary to Stewart's Creek, this blue line here. But you are correct that we had to have a detailed construction plans. There are several sinkholes in the back that have to build up, spill over, build up, spill over. And the houses around these sinkholes are elevated to protect them. And you can see on the plat, let's see, several of them have the stars, which indicate critical lots and certain elevations. They've got the minimum pads around these. A lot of these common areas are sinkholes. Some of these back up to sinkholes, like just to the north of Lot 19 and in South Haven, there's a sinkhole.
They will flow to the retention pond, and then the retention pond will get to that blue.
Yes. Well, these sinkhole common areas act as retention, detention ponds that have an overflow. So they build up
a natural overflow.
Well, and a man-made storm drainage network as well. So we've got either pipes or we've got a spillover ditch or something to allow the water to get to a certain elevation, then start spilling out and going a different route.
What's the asterisk? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just asked because, every time we have a major flooding event, it seems like that's an area that floods bad.
Here are some that back up to sinkholes will need geotechnical reports before we can build on. They allow the building permits, and then the single asterisk require certain pad elevations for the house to protect the house. And then a third thing that we're looking for, we require as-built construction plans. So on these lots that they're filling around these sinkholes, we require that they show that on the as-built plans that it's built to what they said on the construction plan. So it's kind of a third line of defense, I should
And then
say.
codes will enforce that, check that out.
Yes.
Are they putting a fence around the cemetery? It says it's in the common area lot, but there's the footnote, the plat note says there's no defined boundary, and they just identified headstones, but it doesn't say anything about sort of protecting it.
I think we did have a cemetery report on that, where they went out and had a state archaeologist went out and located the limits of it, but since it was all included in this common area, they didn't see the need to put a fence on there. So
It's not a building lot. There's not going to be a house on it.
Lot 1
No,
is
but
not a building
I'm
lot.
just thinking just respecting the cemetery is what I'm thinking. Should it be fenced? So I don't want headstones to be a playground for kids. You know what I mean? It's just this is a respect feature is all I'm thinking.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
What was that? Note.
23.
23. Okay, let's see what that says.
Do we have limestone rocks turned up? Is that what we're showing?
That's what it was. We sent out there, and then they sent us back up an area to designate around it, and I think we specified 25 by 65 feet on there. So we placed an easement around that, and also just put it into the common space. There wasn't any wrought iron fences or anything around it. Actually, we found it at kind of after our surveyors did, located some stuff, and it was in question exactly what was out there. Then we found those. We went out there and had the study, so he said stay this distance off of everything. So we put that easement around that, and then just put it in an open space lot.
I mean, but if I'm walking out there, am I going to recognize that it's a cemetery?
You will now because they cleaned it out. It was all
It was overgrown.
overgrown
Yeah.
bush and shrubs and stuff everywhere. That's why it wasn't known. Now they've kind of cleaned it up and made it where it is a little more presentable.
These are their headstones or their.
Mhm. Some type of old stone, not anything new. It was just an old headstone. Then it was in question if some of them were even the graves.
Right.
So if they went out there and made studies, and that's when they said these are graves, you know. And you're talking about an old one that's kind of knocked over and one had been hit over here, and so we just tried to designate an area and we stayed off of that area also. That's when we created the 25 by 65. So they're kind of in a small area, but we created a buffer area around them all. And that's what you kind of see there with that easement.
Any names identifiable?
There may be in that report, Jeff. It's just been so long, buddy. I don't. If you need to see that report this next time we come in, I can submit that if it's.
Yeah, I'm just trying to anticipate in terms of, you know, well, I mean, just, you know, how do you respect what's there, you know, and the fact
I'm
that
just
it's
fortunate we found them, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, because we could have went out there and they could have taken a track hole and just went through there and they'd never been found.
Right.
You know, and we just, luckily we popped up on them. One of the surveyors were cleaning out looking for right of way through there.
Yeah.
And come up on what they thought was one.
Do you think the developer would be opposed to putting a fence around it, or that's gonna? I mean, that common area is gonna be
And they
maintained
may
by an
have some
HOA?
intent to do that. I don't know if they do. I mean, I could ask, certainly ask. And if they want to put something around it to designate to where.
Or a sign.
Your side.
Here's your sign.
Cemetery sign.
Oh, you're killing me.
Leave this up for a second, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Did you have any, Ron, did that finish you up?
It did, yes. Thank you.
This is just a general question. So the ingress egress will be on Ocala Road on this, I assume?
Well, you mean for the cemetery?
No,
They'll have direct access to not to Ocala, but to the cross street there. That's actually one of the other notes on there. We didn't want to see direct access onto Ocala Road for either Lot 1 or Lot 40.
Okay.
So, yeah, they would have access to the property off of the cross street.
Okay, go back to the Google Earth that shows Ocala, yeah. And so this is West Haven to the left, right?
South Haven.
I'm sorry, South Haven. Yeah, West Haven's in Williamson County. All right, so back me up and show me how all this traffic from South Haven and this new subdivision will get to 840.
There is, let me zoom out a little bit, a brand new, well, not brand new, but a new connection, an extension of Ocala that comes out through here. Ocala used to just tee into Old Shores, and Old Shores tied in here. So the developer of South Haven built this extension of Ocala, which with turn lanes and striping and everything right there. And then, yeah, it works really well. It's got turn lanes on Almaville into the subdivision, so.
Yeah. That was actually a requirement in the pattern book, because we told them when they were developing South Haven that they were going to have to either improve Shores, Old Shores, or they end up doing this, which I thought was better anyway.
Old Shores will be
Closed.
That
portion.
removed. Yes.
Well, at least,
Removed up there where your cursor, that drive right there, Mike, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we're up to here to there or something.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
took that part of
is
it.
that just a stop sign, or is that a light that will be at the new Ocala extension in Almaville?
Right now, it's just a stop sign. The traffic study didn't indicate.
So with the addition
Warrant
of
for that.
with the addition of this new subdivision, do we fear that we may be stacking up cars that may even stack up past the Old Shores,
Yes.
Ocala?
Well, yes, that's always a fear, but we will look at, as new subdivisions sections come in for South Haven and this preserve, they've got another section of it. We'll look at updating the traffic study, and then eventually it'll go all the way and connect to the north
Stewart Creek Farms.
to Stewart's Creek Farm. So they'll have another connection up here, if it'll draw, right in here. Stewart's Creek Farm, I think, is extending a road right now to this point right here. So, and then South Haven will tie to that, so there'll be a connection through here to Burnt Knob, and then most of the traffic will come out on Ocala to
And the
840 in
and
Elmville.
the preserve actually has a connection back into South Haven on Proprietor's
Yes.
Place
Yes.
on the
There's
plat.
another connection
Yeah,
here.
right there.
So, let me ask this question. Getting back to some of our discussions at full commission in the last month or two, what, do we know, or do we have an anticipation on what future schools in this area may be located, or what land has already been?
They are
purchased?
in the process right now of looking for land out in this area. At one time, they were looking at property to the east, where Mike was highlighting.
Mhm.
But we had a lot of issues with that property, mainly for some of the same reasons that you were talking about how they're going to get to the property. They were actually considering going in from the subdivision to the north, having that being one of their main access ways in and out back to Burnt Knob, which we
This
didn't
wasn't
like.
built for that amount of
Right,
traffic.
no, it wasn't. Of course, then Ocala, the same things that you're talking about. Ocala in and of itself, as far as, that would be a way to get in and out, but then you're looking at traffic improvements along Almaville and Ocala. There was even talk about taking a road all the way back to the east to link back into, what was that? Veterans Parkway, right. But that's as you can see, that's a long way to go. So,
Extending Vaughn, I think, and
yeah.
How many years projection is at school?
they're looking for land now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in their.
Right now.
I can answer some of that. The land is part of the money that we gave them to buy land for a 10-year plan.
Okay.
So it should fall within a 10-year construction
I don't
plan.
think this is one they're looking. I think there are other school, based on the conversations we've had at least.
Right. No, yeah, it's not-
Yeah, this is not an imminent one, but this is one that they do definitely have on their radar as far as securing some property somewhere in this area.
Yeah, somewhere in this.
Quadrant.
So,
for lack of a better word.
All right, so, which begs the question then, is there communication between the school board and the planning commission before they pull the trigger and buy a piece of land?
They have sent us an email, it's been just a few weeks now, about us kind of giving us the parameters of what they're looking at, the size of the property in a kind of general area. We're going to have our GIS person at least do some preliminary analysis of some land that it would at least fit that criteria as far as size and everything. Now, that doesn't take into account, what utilities are there and everything, but at least it gets us an idea, okay, these are some potential, because they're looking at, 150, 200 acres or so.
I mean, I guess ideally, if they narrowed it down to 2 potential sites, could they give you 30 days, 45 days to prepare at least some kind of an infrastructure overview?
We can certainly request that of them.
I mean, I think we almost have to
I
ask
think
that.
at this point, the first thing we need to do is identify what tracks might be out there, let them digest that a little bit, have them come back and say, okay, these are some of the ones that we want to look more closely at, and then we could start helping them out with, the infrastructure requirements and needs and things. Because it wouldn't just be us; we'd get with Consolidated Utility as far as the water's concerned. Soils, what kind of soils are
Right.
possibly available. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it.
That's
obviously.
that's the big challenge
Yeah.
with this part of the county is soil and water, potable water. So it's going to be a challenge to find a suitable site.
That's going to be a big challenge on how to pay for the infrastructure to get to it, too.
Mm-hmm.
But so to answer Mike's question, the answer is yes. You are having conversations.
Yeah, they did email us. Now things have been kind of crazy over the last couple of weeks, so our GIS guy, we just haven't had time to really sit down and kind of flesh it out. But they have contacted us about looking at. They gave us some parameters to what to look at in this area, so that's what we're going to try to.
Let me ask you this, and I'm sorry to divert, Mr. Chairman. Do they need to be here in this room with us on a quarterly basis to just give an update on?
I mean, the invitation's been extended to them.
Okay.
I know at least at the different committee meetings. I don't know if I've specifically said, hey, you need to come to these meetings, but I mean, I think it's very clear that they know they're welcome here.
Okay.
Wonder what your take on it?
I think it's a new day, and I think we've begun to have conversations that we've never had before, and we're just at the very front end of them. So we're on our way.
Was there dialogue on the one that just, I don't know if it's a done deal, but out Christiana Way?
Not as early on as we would have liked, which is what we've learned from. Yeah.
Because the infrastructure.
Yeah. You preach, brother. Yeah.
Yeah. It was an oh shucks, we wish you would have asked us
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
It was the ideal example of why these conversations need to happen this early on. So I'm thrilled to know that they even came to you first and said, "Tell us where to look." So that's like I said, it's a new day. Yeah.
A long time ago, school board members were here.
They were.
That's a long time ago. Somebody from school board was here.
We need to keep pushing for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Other questions on this piece of property? I'm not sure we've got a motion.
We had a motion in a second.
I had a motion.
Thank you for reminding me of that. I guess we've got a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Kind of before we get off of that and then into our next item, the county commission has asked the planning department through our property management committee, which Commissioner
Public Works
Committee, which Mike Cush chairs, to begin to review infrastructure issues and traffic studies and potential tools that the county could use through the planning commission to look at what our needs are in the future. You remember we looked at some traffic shed type of situations, and I'm not sure that what all was going to be looked at, but different tools that might be available for us in the future. So that's going to be revisited with a coordination between the committee of Public Works and the Planning Commission. So we'll kind of keep this commission abreasted as we go forward with that. It won't be something that'll happen immediately, but it'll take us a while to kind of work through that and see if we can come up with something.
Can I put a footnote on that quickly? One of the things we'd also talked about at some point and never really fully explored was the idea behind establishing an escrow account for developers to deposit funds into for future road improvements. Lisa had told us that could be a designated, dedicated fund. And I know the issue always then became, well, how much money do developers put in, and how long does it sit there before we make the improvement and all that? So of course, those are conversations that need to happen with Greg. But in addition to the traffic shed, which we've looked at several times, and it's not been a clear yes for us that we've proceeded on. But the idea behind the escrow account and dedicated funds is a little bit more straightforward and a little bit more easily implemented, I would think. But still, we haven't fully explored it. So as we talk about these solutions, that's when we don't need to lose sight of. Because I think you told me, Doug, does the city already do that?
They do.
Yeah. And now that we're updating our major thoroughfare plan, we know what roads.
Well, we've got money in the budget to hopefully start the process.
Right. But then we'll know.
Yeah, right,
But that
right.
So all that sort of dovetails together. So anyway, I just I don't want to lose sight of that as a potential contribution to the solution. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. 6B8 19-2023 Ruth Alford, one lot subdivision, one lot on 2.12 acres on RM located along Alford Road. Ruth Alford is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The applicant is proposing to subdivide about 2 acres from the existing 15-acre tract. There's a fire hydrant located along the frontage of this property, so there's no issue as far as that's concerned. Right-of-way dedication is required, again, which is why it's being brought before you. The plat in and of itself has addressed the comments that we had. There's really only one item that needs to be addressed. They need to add the TDEC certification onto the plat. They've got the existing soil or the existing site and system shown, but they are showing a backup SSDS and everything. They just need to be able to have the TDEC sign off on it. That's really the only thing that I can see that's lacking on this plat. Again, it's in good order besides that, so we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Make motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve 19-2023 Ruth Alford one-lot subdivision. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Item 6C, these are items submitted for site plan approval. 6C1, 19-3017 SCI Towers Sunnyview, 2930 Barfield Road, installation of a 199-foot telecommunications tower on 29 acres, zone RM, located along Barfield Road. SCI Towers is the applicant. Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved the location of this tower at their March 13th, 2019 meeting. This site plan is consistent with that approved location. We did have some minor comments on this site plan, but those have been addressed. This site plan is in good order. There are representatives of the applicant who are present. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to help answer them.
I highlighted the wrong area. I highlighted a CUD lot. They're probably choking right now.
Did we not tell you that? Whoops.
My mouse would.
It's back over here.
Yeah. Right here.
Yeah.
Is the lot.
Yeah.
Top of the mountain.
What's the purpose of the tower? Is this just a cell tower?
Cell tower, yes, ma'am. This one, I believe, is Verizon to start the first tower, or the first antennas.
One of the shorter towers now.
Yeah, it's 199 feet, which of course, they go under 200 feet because that's where you're required to put lighting through FAA. So anything under 200, you're not. But and we're starting to see some of the small cells come through. They're going to be located in right away. One of the firms reached out to us last week and gave us some preliminary drawings of what they had. They're really no bigger than telephone poles, and that's really what you're going to start seeing in the future. Not so much the big towers, but more and more of the smaller ones around, because it's a capacity issue, as I understand the of course the folks that are here for this could probably speak a lot more intelligently to this than I can, but it's not so much the phone service that's the issue anymore. It's the providing the data and the bandwidth that's needed for that. So you need more of the towers for more capacity. So you're seeing smaller towers for the 5G rollout and everything.
Probably see a lot more of these.
Probably not so much more of these. We will still see these from time to time, but you're going to, especially in the more populated areas of the cities and the counties, you're going to start seeing a lot more of the small cells.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve 19-3017 SCI Towers Sunnyview. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C2, 19-3018 Barfield Baptist Church, new construction of 16,199 square foot building of approximately 10 acres, zone RM, located along Veterans Parkway. Barfield Baptist Church is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The Board of Zoning Appeals approved a special exception for a medium community assembly for this. I'm sorry. It looks like I didn't. That date's correct, the March 9, 2016, but that's not for a telecommunications tower. I apologize. That's got a little too happy with the cut and paste at that point. But this is for a medium assembly use for the church. There were several comments that we had during our review. This is a pretty thorough and large set of plans, so it took us a little bit to go through it, but there's a lot here. But the plans were in pretty good shape, really, for the most part. We did have several comments that we did make on them. Those comments have been addressed. There is a couple items. They need to show the roof drain locations on the proposed building on the drainage and grading sheet. They were still awaiting locations from the architect and would show those prior to the site plan being officially approved, signed off on for building permits. The other issue had to do with the landscape plan. They are showing a solid visual screen, a privacy fence, kind of along the length of the building on the east side of the property. We've just asked that they extend that a little bit further to the north. Going to the north, just to block off the parking area as well. So with that, like I said, these plans are actually in good order, and the representative of the applicant is present. We can happy to answer any questions.
There's nothing on that lot currently today.
There's
There's a
existing,
house.
there's a house and some accessory structures, which at this point they're planning on keeping.
They're going to combine it with the site, I guess. So they'll keep the existing house and shop, make it part of the site.
Motion approved, so staff comments.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve 19-3018, site plan approval for Barfield Baptist Church. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question. Doug, are we requiring the privacy fence because of the change in the zoning between the two, or?
Well, it wasn't really a change in the zoning. It was a special exception that they received. They didn't approve and they didn't require any additional screening beyond that. I mean, I just think from our standpoint, I think just kind of blocking the building from the lots right to the east, along with the parking area, would be sufficient.
Well, the only reason I said, I know lots of times when you see churches, it's nice because it is open, you know, because it's open for parking, and like I said, they're maintaining so much of the green space in the back. I'm just wondering if the privacy fence is going to be more of a visual intrusion than a help to that area. Is the only reason I'm.
Yeah, the BZA didn't require anything beyond. I think that was really something we just asked them to consider.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Just for the existing house.
Or for the houses that are already there,
Gotcha.
that back up to it.
Other questions? All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? That motion to approve carries. Thank you. 6C319-3020, Bruce Heights Mail Kiosk. New construction of a mail kiosk site on approximately 6,000 square feet. This is lot 29, zoned RM, located along Don Bruce Court. Don Bruce is the applicant. Doug?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Our final site plan of the day is for the mail kiosk at Bruce Heights. Again, I won't bother to go through the same description as I have on other mail kiosks. It's a similar situation. The positive thing about this is this particular lot was large enough that he was able to carve out a little bit and not really be a major inconvenience for the development of the subdivision. So we did have some comments on this. They were fairly minor. He has addressed those. So with that, we'd recommend approval.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a motion and a second to approve 19-3020, Bruce Heights Mail Kiosk. Any other questions or comments?
It will be interesting to see how this one works as opposed to some of the other ones, because this one has so much, I mean, it's a dedicated pull-off, you know. Maybe 10, 15 years from now, somebody will know.
All those in favor of that motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion to approve carries. Thank you. Other business?
I don't have anything, Mike. Do you have anything?
Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, the 13th of May, 6 p.m. in the courthouse. And if we'll kind of look at a date, Doug, and maybe begin to plan our second quarter training session. And if you don't have anything already planned, let's look at sinkholes. I know we've talked about it before, but with today's conversation, it'd be probably good for us to re-hone those skills a little bit.
We've actually advertised for next month already. We've already sent the advertisement in for having a training session. So we'll start moving in that direction. Now, I think the first thing we were going to try to shoot for was something on the rock quarries and talking about that.
Good.
But, I mean, there's no reason we couldn't have, we've generally been doing them quarterly or at least quarterly-ish.
Right.
But there's nothing that says we couldn't have 2 or 3 in a row.
Yep.
So that's something we'll work toward.
Okay.
So we may have one at the end of May.
That's the plan. We actually had advertised one for today, but with just everything going on and whatnot, we just didn't have time to really shore up anything. So, but you know, not the end of the world. But we'll definitely be moving forward on several of these things.
Doug, how many years is it going to take for us to realize whether kiosks are better in the front, middle, or the back?
And what load can you put on them with what design? I think, you know, this thing about them, if you've got 200 lots, and they want to put them all together,
Those people who got that.
you know.
Well, and I think you're hitting on several things that, I mean, some of this is going to be outside of our control to a certain extent. Now, as far as the design about which one's going to work better, you know, I don't know. I think personally the ones that are going to work the best are probably the ones that probably don't have as many people coming to it back and forth. I like the ones where you have the pull off in the parking areas, but even that can be a problem because if you've got 4 or 5 parking spots and everybody's there and you've got 2 or 3 people trying to get in, that can cause a problem. If you've got the ones where you just pull up to it, you run into the same problem. You could have a backup area. I think the big issue is going to be if the Postal Service decides that they just want to see one kiosk in a development that could have 200 to 300 lots. I mean, it's almost going to be the point where you're going to have to see a traffic study for something like that, which is just ridiculous. And when you explain these things to the Postal Service, all they care about is a place to put their mail. When I had about a 45-minute conversation with the lady out of East Tennessee about another development, and she kept going back to, well, all we're requiring is they put some boxes up there. She goes, that's all we care about. I'm like, okay, well, how are you supposed to handle the traffic? How are you supposed to handle who takes care of this thing if it falls apart? They don't care about that. And so when the developers call them complaining about having to put one of these in, they turn around and say, well, it's the county that's making you do all this. You know, we're not requiring you to have an HOA. We're not requiring you to have parking. All we want are the boxes on the side of the road. I'm like, well, that's all well and good, but how do you handle ADA compliance then? You just can't put one up on the side of, I mean, the only thing they're looking at is the mail. That's as far as they're looking with it.
Okay, but it blew my mind. It never occurred to me that developers could just say, go get P.O. boxes. Because at some point, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So now the post office is going to have to build new post offices because they're not going to have
Well,
enough
more
boxes
post
for
office
everybody.
boxes.
And then they'll have to
Exactly.
deal with the traffic.
Jamie, be nice.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to commend Doug and them for this because this is really a hard situation that we're trying to deal with. All the engineers that are doing all these subdivisions, and it's just a knee-jerk reaction. The federal government's throwing this on us, but Doug and them have done a really good job with this. I do a lot of stuff throughout the state. Williamson County, for instance, they just said, "Hey, that's the federal government imposing it on you. We're not going to deal with it. That's them." So we're doing a bunch of subdivisions over there getting approved at the county and the county commission, and they don't care where we place the mail kiosk. They said that's up to the federal. You dealing with the federal government on getting that approved. So we're dealing separate from the county and going over here to the post office masters, dealing with them on a place to put these. So
Then does the post office people care where you put it?
well, yes, they're the ones mandating what Doug and all of us are doing right now. They're kind of throwing this on us, and now they're coming back, and I'm hoping they're being a little bit more lenient on one location. You know, if we got a 500,000 lot subdivision, they say, hey, it has to be one location. And like me and Doug were talking about last week, I mean, that throws up that's really hard for us to centralize that, especially on your first phase if you just do 50 lots in there. So we're trying to resolve that, but I just want to commend Doug and him because this has not been something easy to just throw on there. A lot of these subdivisions are already built that they're making us come back and retrofit something in. Like Steve had that one on that cul-de-sac. It's just been a really hard situation. But anyhow, Williamson County, I just want to let y'all know that's one that we're just trying to figure out where to place it.
Do any of the three y'all have an idea of what you think might be the best number of boxes at one location?
Well,
And I know it can depend on the design and the flow.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of, Florida's done this for years. And they say, of course, down there, they're saying that they don't have a lot of parking spaces. They'll have a huge development, and they'll have a little pull-off, or they go in there and get their mail and go, and there's never a traffic backup. And you see a little curb out, kick out, they come in there, they grab their mail, and they're gone. There's none of that stop, and you go and talk and stuff. It's boom, boom, and you never see that. But they've been doing that for years there. But Doug and them are coming up with, we're trying to get a game plan of how many houses we got, how many lots, how much we anticipate. But it's been a little bit different in Florida and other areas that's had it for years, been doing that.
I can vouch for the little pull-off, and it holds about 3 cars.
Yeah.
And people just go right to the box. They come out, people are kind, they wait.
And boom, and you go.
And then they're gone. And if those 3 slots are filled and you want to come get your mail, typically you just drive on and you'll come pick it up an hour or two later when you're going in and out.
Yeah.
So are we overthinking it? Have we done this
Well,
to
I don't,
ourselves?
I think, I just want, we've all, Doug and all of us have been kind of looking at this and trying to figure out what to do, because they've given us a, knee-jerk reaction where they said, here it is, ultimatum, and we're all trying to deal with it right now. So I just want to throw out the other places like that are doing that, and it's working well. I don't know how it's working so good. I haven't actually physically seen it, but everybody that tells me it's from there that we're doing developments here that are from the other areas that's got these little quick turnoffs say they work really well.
And that was one of the big reasons we didn't want to necessarily dictate how they did it, because in some developments it might be better just to have a small parking lot, depending on the size of it.
Yeah.
We don't have a problem with the pull-offs. I mean, and because I was talking to, oh Lord, who was it? I was talking to one of the developers about it, and I even told him, I said, we allow for the pull-off. Actually, I think it might have been for Angler's Retreat, because they were worried about having to lose a lot. I said, you don't have to do that. I said, it just needs to be big enough for the boxes. If you need a pull-out area, well, we can work with that. That's something we will allow.
Because, we had that one, I think it was last month, where there were 2 spots and one of them was handicapped.
Right.
Yeah. See, the handicap thing is another issue. The handicap people can request theirs delivered to their house. They're not exempt. They're kind of exempt from this. So if you're handicapped, you report to the post office. They hand deliver your mail.
Do we have to provide a handicap?
But that's what we've been doing. What we're doing right now, just in case. I mean, you never know. So we've shown that, but in reality, the handicapped people are not going to pull over their van, get out and back up track and then do all this. They'll hand deliver theirs to their house if they want to, if there's an issue.
So I'm just thinking out loud. So then could you just do the pull-off, make it handicap accessible, but not designate lots? Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Well, that's what we've done that on a couple of estates of Harvest Woods. I did something like that. We've done it on a few of them, but when you get into these larger subdivisions that, like we're talking about, 100, 200, 300 lots, that if you go by the equation, it needs a few more parking spaces. It further than the pull off. So
if you look at all the apartment complexes here in town,
that's another example.
They're all pull-offs.
Yeah, it's a little pull-off.
And they stack about 3 or 4 cars.
Same with the trash.
Handicap ramp.
Right, make it accessible.
So you cover everything.
Do they have a designated handicap space?
No.
But they do have a.
It's the same for trash. It's the same as trash. You look at trash the same way. They're going to be doing their mail and trash. If you look at the trash, there's not a huge array of trash thing either. It's just 2 or 3 you pull up and throw it up there and throw it in the dumpster, and you kind of go on. Same as kind of the mail.
I'd encourage you to drive through an apartment complex or 2 between the next.
I've noticed them, but I've never thought about it.
Yeah, it's just a simple pull-off. Takes 3 minutes. You're gone.
We've spent more time on kiosks than we have on infrastructure.
And the other thing, before I get off tangent, Mike remembers my house, one of my first houses I built 20 years ago over, you helped me with some of it, I built over a sinkhole. I'm more confident, me as an engineer, knowing that I've got a geotech report on that, it's been compacted, versus the 2 or 3 lots beside me. Even though it was a sinkhole, I guarantee you, I had full of concrete, steel, rock. I know what's under mine.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that all these karst features that Mike's talking about, if you got a sinkhole there, that sinkhole is going to somewhere else. This all may be a subdivision, this is a sinkhole here, but this sinkhole is going over there. It's going up under every one of them houses.
Yeah, that was my question earlier, which was how do you know how you're impacting it? Yeah.
So but you know that sinkhole that you filled up, that's been filled and compacted. It may pop up way over here somewhere else at some other time. Nobody knows, but you know that one designated area that you filled and compacted.
We do have some dye tracings from Dr. Ogden from MTSU that helps kind of determine the general direction of way the underground flow is heading. But I mean, without more detailed studies,
Right.
I think it's going that way.
Yes. Thank you, Jamie. Mr. Bruce, you have something?
Uh-oh.
Should we put a 3-minute time limit on you?
Yeah. I'm Don Bruce. This is my kiosk plan that just came through here a while ago, and this thing has been a pain in my yang, and I project that what we got approved here today is going to cost me in the neighborhood of $50,000.
Wow.
Because I paid SCC roughly $5,000 to design it. And where we're going to put this, I'd been protecting a nice row of trees. There was a fence row, and we cleaned that out, and we had a nice long row of trees along the edge of the subdivision there that I was going to leave. Now, I'm going to have to tear out 6 or 8 or 10 of those trees to put this in there. And I think it may not cost $50,000, but I'm figuring it's going to cost about $50,000, and hope it'll be quite a bit less. But I know I've done spent $5,000, and we hadn't done nothing. And plus it took 6,000 square feet. We was fortunate that we had a 5-acre lot there that we could take this little chunk out of, and it didn't do any damage to it except for taking out the trees. But now, I was driving around the other day, and I've got a bad habit of always looking off. And I thought, that looked like a kiosk thing there. So I turned around, went back, and made pictures. And I don't even know how to get pictures up on this thing. But if I can pull it up here, this is the cutest little thing that I've laid eyes on. And it was just kind of like people was discussing here, just kind of a quick little pull-off. It had one light across the street that was a city light that lit it up. And there was no landscaping. And if does anybody know how to get pictures up on these phones?
We need to get granddaughter here.
Yeah. And find photos and go way down to the bottom. And well, keep looking. You'll see those little mailboxes.
Here we go.
See if you can find them. All right.
Yeah.
That's cute. That thing is on it. Stands got 6 or 8 or 10 boxes in it. It's got a little roof on it, and there's nothing to it really. And I don't know if you can pull that thing up on the screen or not.
Well,
you
not right now, I can't.
If you could email it to me, I could.
And there's really not much to that thing.
I understand that the boxes are covered. It's not covered.
And
Gotcha.
And and it's right on the subdivision street with just some maybe a half dozen parking spaces. And but it is ADA accessible, like a sidewalk all the way around it, and with a ramp to where a wheelchair can go up. And so that thing, it's really not much to it. And takes up very little space. So that's cute. Did y'all see it?
Yes, sir.
And so that's all I wanted to say. But this looks inexpensive. Maybe probably $10,000-15,000 would do that, or even less maybe. But what I'm going to have to do, what we just run through, will cost me somewhere $50,000 or less. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Again, if you'll do simple math the way I've done it, final plats, we've approved 174 lots today. That's in addition to 400 and something at the commission meeting, I believe, last month. So it's here, and I think Commissioner Reed commented a little bit earlier. Are they all going to be like this? And I can't say that they're all going to be like this, but those of us that remember 10, 12 years ago, we're where we were at that time. And your patience and to work through these meetings are going to be paramount. Doug's staff is overworked, and we're going to have to deal with this stuff for the foreseeable future. So get ready. Here it comes. It's already here. Thank you once again for your participation and your attendance. We are adjourned.